Hi, I'm Marty Cohn, and this is BCTV's Meet the Candidates 2020, sponsored in part by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. This series affords you an opportunity to hear from folks running for elected office. Today, our guest is Senator Jeanette White, the Democratic Party candidate for Windham County State Senator. Welcome, Senator White.
Thank you so much, Marty. I'm happy to be here, and thanks to BCTV for doing this.
Okay, great. Well, I know you're busy. You're on the floor and casting votes, so let's delve right into it.
Sure.
First question, why are you seeking re-election for as state senator?
Well, I sometimes surprise myself when it comes around July or August and realize that I'm going to be doing it again. This will be my 10th time. I know. I had thought maybe 3 or 4 might be a good number, 3 or 4 terms, but I love the work. What I love about it is taking an issue that has many different sides, and listening to all those sides and trying to be respectful and come to some kind of a resolution that is the most palatable to the most people. And I know that sounds like big compromise, but that is what this is all about, because there are differences of opinion, and I love that challenge.
All right. So then I guess the follow-up question would be, what sets you apart from the other candidates seeking the office?
I think given the situation that we're in, there's a lot of unrest, and I think that here there is some value, a lot of value, I would say, to having experience and some positions of leadership. And I have to say, I don't want my last term to be ended by the way we are now. Since March 13th, we've been doing all this remotely, and it isn't quite as satisfying, but I think that the experience that I've had doing this way and the other way gives me an advantage. And hopefully people will see that I believe experience matters, and I am in a position of leadership, although not formally. I chair a committee, so that's the leadership role I have.
All right, great. So given, you've been there for a while, if you're reelected, what would be your top 2 priorities?
That is so hard to just zero in on. I know it is, and there are many priorities that I have that have nothing to do with the committees I serve on. Promoting health care and all that is very important to me in our economic situation. But because I hope if I'm elected, I hope also to be chairing government operations again. That's where I have probably the most influence. And so, again, it's really hard to focus on 2, but I would say that probably the very foundations of our democracy are dealt with in government operations, and that includes elections. And so we're going to spend a great deal of time reviewing this election, how it went. Are there permanent changes that can be made? Should we not? So we'll spend a lot of time doing that. And the other issue that I've been working on for a number of years is around the whole issue of law enforcement, judiciary reform, how we fund our sheriffs, how we provide training for our law enforcement officers. So that is in our jurisdiction, and we have a bill that I hope passes. It's in the House right now, and I hope it gets to the governor and he signs it, that moves us in that direction. But there's a lot more that I want to continue to work on. So I would say that there are many issues we'll be working on, but those are 2 very important ones for me.
All right, great. So I'd just like to turn to a couple of issues.
Sure.
One would be, what would you do to ensure that more Vermont families with young children can find and afford childcare?
Oh, well, not being on the Health and Welfare Committee or the Education Committee or the Appropriations Committee, my input is probably not as valuable as some, but we need to, first of all, make sure that we have childcare slots. That's really important, and I think that we've seen a lot of childcare go out of service over the last, well, particularly during the pandemic, but even before that. So I would encourage my colleagues to think about what it is that we need for childcare providers, because sometimes we think that we know what we need, but really what we need for childcare providers are people who are empathetic and love children and have safe environments. And then try and figure out a way of increasing the pay of childcare workers, because that's a horrible situation. And also providing some subsidies for the parents who need to have those childcare slots. So I guess I would, I won't have direct involvement in any of those, but I'd encourage my colleagues to go in that direction.
All right, great. Well, now let me ask you about the other end of the age spectrum.
That's me.
So, and I guess me too. So anyway, recent reports indicate that seniors in Vermont face one of the highest rates of financial insecurity in the nation. How do you think we can make life for seniors more affordable?
Well, I think that we, first of all, probably need more affordable housing for seniors, safe and affordable housing for seniors in every income category, not just seniors with limited income, but for everybody. Safe, affordable options for housing, whether it's assisted living or independent residential housing. And, you know, part of the problem, I'm sure, is because in general, Vermonters are lower paid than people in many other places. And our cost of living is pretty high. So it makes sense that seniors in Vermont wouldn't have had the same opportunity to save as people in other places. So that kind of tells us why we have people in that situation. But I think that a couple things that we also can do is reform the way we reimburse for our pharmacy, because many seniors are, including myself, rely on some pharmaceuticals, and they're very expensive. So if you don't have decent health insurance, you just can't afford them. So I think that we need to look at how we charge for our pharmaceuticals, how we reimburse, and making sure that seniors are able to afford the supplemental insurance to Medicare, because without that, they won't be able to survive. And I think that then the reforming of our healthcare system will also have a huge impact on there, both the way we provide healthcare and the way we fund it. So I think those are a couple things. Other than that, I don't know how we make it more affordable for seniors. We are at the point where we can't really save anymore to look forward to that. Maybe in the future, we could have more literacy education for young people to convince them that they should, in fact, look forward to their 70s and prepare for it. And our treasurer, I think, is doing a great job on doing literacy education, as are many organizations out there. And then I guess things like the cost of heating is a huge issue if people are living alone. And, you know, I often think that we put a lot, I worked for the Council on Aging for many years. And I think that sometimes when we talk about staying home, we put a lot of emphasis on it that perhaps is an impediment to people living in the best situation they can. Because if we assume that living in the place where you have lived for the past 50 years is the best, but now you're in a big old house at the end of a road, maybe that isn't the best situation. And so maybe, but you don't want to, your family doesn't feel, is made to feel somewhat guilty if they suggest that maybe it would be much better if you moved into this apartment in town. So I think that we need to look at all of those things and how we promote what independence really means. And I know that's very somewhat controversial and very complicated, but I do think that we, for example, had a friend who lived at the end of the road in a house that she and her husband built, and it was lovely, but she had macular degeneration. She couldn't drive. People couldn't stop by to see her. She moved into an apartment in the village, and suddenly she had a lot of independence. She could walk to the co-op. She could walk to the post office, to church. People could stop by and just visit her. So I think we need to look at how we define independence.
All right, thank you. All right, so you brought up, we're living in this COVID world.
Yeah.
But we're doing well in Vermont, but we're gonna get through this. So I guess my question would be, what would be your vision for Vermont in a post-COVID world?
Oh, well, getting back to normal, whatever on earth that means these days. I think that we need to look at we need to incorporate the lessons we've learned during this in terms of, for example, one of the things that my committee deals with is open meeting law. And people have not been able to have, select boards have not been able to have in-person meetings. So they're having them on Zoom. And it means many, many, many more people can actually see them and take part in them in many ways. So when we are able to go back, we need to incorporate those kind of changes and have some kind of combination. I'm not sure what that means, but we've learned that we can do things by the use of technology in addition to in-person. So I think we need to we need to incorporate those lessons, and I think we need to also look at what we mean by our jobs. Many people have found that they can work at home. And maybe they can't work at home all the time, but they can work at home part of the time. So how does that affect the way our workplaces are organized and the way we think about at home? I'm right now helping somebody. They've had a work at home policy for a while, but now they're thinking about it in an entirely different way, so I'm helping them rewrite that policy. And I think we need to think about that and how we educate our kids. Do we really need so much brick and mortar for everything? I don't know, but I do hope that we do a little better about our downtowns and our actual brick and mortar merchants and shops, and don't rely as much on online purchases there, because I think that we've learned that we knew before that it would send people right out of business, but I think that we've learned that even more dramatically now. So I I don't know. My vision is that I would like to have people be able to gather together and socialize, but I think we will be always taking more precautions. And I think that we also need to take measures so that to have measures in place so that we can act quickly when something happens again. And in our committee, we just passed a bill that sets that up so that if we have any kind of an emergency again, we can quickly adopt things around municipal budgets, open meetings, workplace, all EMS services, all of those. So we need to be able, we've learned that we are not immune and we need to prepare.
All right. Well, all right. So my last question for you, and this is, I think, going to be the toughest question of all, because you've run for reelection so many times and won. What do you want voters to know about you that they don't already know?
Well, I guess I want them to know that even though, so there are 40,000 people that are my constituents, around 40,000. And some of them I agree with on all issues, perhaps very few. Some of them I don't agree with on very many issues at all. But I would hope that they would know that even though we may not agree on an issue, that I do feel that all views need to be respected, and I will take their thoughts into consideration. And I will listen to people. And if people don't know that about me, I hope that they would know it now, that I am not an ideologue, and I will treat people with respect. And I do know that I don't, I got a note the other day that said, you were elected to represent us and you're not representing us. Well, there are 40,000 people in this district, and there are probably 40,000 opinions on many issues. So I just hope that they know that I use my best judgment and will try to do the best for what's best for Vermont.
All right. Well, Senator Jeanette White, the Democratic Party candidate for Windham County State Senator, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Marty. It's always a pleasure.
The general election is Tuesday, November 3rd. Remember, you could vote early in person, vote absentee by mail, or vote absentee hand-delivered on Election Day. Whichever way works for you, please vote.
Marty,
thanks for watching. I'm sorry?
The ballots are starting to go out today.
Absolutely. And I hope people are watching for that and they'll vote. Thanks for watching Meet the Candidates 2020, sponsored in part by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. I'm Marty Cohn. Stay healthy.